Hello, how's it going today? Today I am going to be walking you through five of my favorite, most influential political, economic, and culturally related books. And I want to know in the comments what are some of your favorite books that relate to politics, history, things along that line. And these are some of the ones that I've really loved and have impacted my political thinking over the years. I hope you enjoy. The first book I am recommending today is End the Fed by Ron Paul. And this is one of the first political books that I ever read that was interesting to me. And it is foundational to much of what I believe about US politics and the role of government and things along that line. And Ron Paul really spends a lot of time going over what is sound money and what is a good currency and talks about how a fiat currency does not match those standards. He also talks about the role of a central bank in increasing the size of government, the necessity of a central bank for a large government, and really makes a comprehensive argument for ending the Federal Reserve on many fronts: constitutional, moral, economic, and freedom wise. So I think it is a really good primer into monetary policy that you can dive deeper into that afterwards. But if you're interested at all, or even if you're not interested, it's a topic that's really important that drives a lot of our economy that many people know very little about. The second book on my list is Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt, and I definitely recommend this because it is another easily accessible yet very deep economics book. And I have talked about it briefly in another video before, but just to kind of get into it real quickly again, Hazlitt talks about one economic lesson that destruction and forced economic activity is never a good thing. And he walks through subsidies and many other governmental activities and how those aren't, and explains the negative unintended consequences that those have. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that, yeah, you might see some initial benefit from an action that someone takes by taking money from one person and reallocating it forcefully to another sector of the economy, or by implementing price controls or something along those lines. But what you don't see is the economic activity that would have happened if that situation would not have happened. And without that counterfactual in mind, we can't really judge the actions of a state and what are the right actions to actually benefit the economy. The third recommendation today is Liberalism by Ludwig von Mises. And I read actually a PDF copy of this book when I was in college and took down a bunch of really great, profound quotes from it that I seem to have lost. And then I later decided I am going to get a physical book of this just to have it on my bookshelf because it's that good. And recently I've started reading it again, and it hits just the way it hit before. And Mises really talks about what is liberalism and contrasts it with what may commonly be known as liberalism today, or liberals, which is actually more socialist, which is the opposite of liberalism, which believes in free enterprise and unrestricted movement of goods and people and things along those lines. And liberalism really is, as Mises defines it, the application of the laws of human nature and science to society. And at the end of the day, Mises explains that liberalism does not have any special interests, does not have a political party necessarily. It is not tied to any religion. Liberalism is the belief in the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people, and the knowledge about how that can come about, and the application of the lessons of history and things along those lines to that. And Mises gets into a bunch of really interesting points about how that applies to economics, political parties, foreign conflicts, things along those lines. But at the end of the day, I think that this is a really great introduction to the ideas of liberalism, but dives a little deeper as well, and has a bunch of really foundational liberal principles in it, in the classical liberal form, not in the modern day liberal form. The fourth recommendation on my list is Enough Already, with the subtitle Time to End the War on Terrorism by Scott Horton. And it is exactly just what it sounds. It is a comprehensive takedown of the US and I guess of their allies and their war on terrorism from really a historical perspective. It does, in some sense, less arguing than it just does presenting a lot of unknown facts about US involvement in conflicts around the globe, especially in the Middle East and North Africa, but really around the globe in the US war on terrorism, and things that many people don't even know about. And I have 2 copies of this book actually, because I got Scott Horton to sign it, and when I got him to sign it, I did not have my other book with me, so I ended up buying another one. But it is the one book that I would recommend on US foreign policy if people want to know more about the history of it and really get that deep, deep dive that Scott Horton does and is so good at doing. The final recommendation on my list today is Social Justice Fallacies by Thomas Sowell. And Thomas Sowell has written many good books, so it's hard to recommend just one. But this is one that I recently picked up and really enjoyed. Sowell's just very logical exploration of different issues is really interesting, and the issues that he explores include minimum wage and affirmative action and many other policies along that nature that have to do with some form of intended social justice. And Sowell really explains how each of these actions are something that harms society as a whole and even harms the intended benefit of the policies and beneficiaries of the policies. So, highly recommend Social Justice Fallacies if you want to learn more specifically about those 2 things, minimum wage and affirmative action. And Sowell is a great read always, so I also recommend diving deeper into some of his other stuff. So to recap, that is 5 books that I recommend for learning more about politics, economics, culture, and how all of those things collide. And these books are End the Fed, Economics in One Lesson, Liberalism, Enough Already, and Social Justice Fallacies. All of these authors are, at least in libertarian circles, pretty well-known authors, and they have all done great works outside of these things as well. So I recommend getting into these books first. And I also would like to know, like I said, what are some books that you recommend that might even have conflicting perspectives with these authors? I'm interested in exploring more. And if you like this video, go ahead and put a like down below and subscribe if you want to see more similar content in the future. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.